Ray, are you ready? Should we get started?
Miranda, this is Ray. Are we ready to go from your seat as far as having people logged on who want to be?
Sorry, I think we could probably get started. I think we could get started. There might be a few people that will jump on, but I think we have at least all of the council members, but we'll have to do roll call for that.
Yeah, I believe we have a quorum now, so. Do you want me to start off, Ray?
Sure, please do. Elizabeth's going to make some introductory remarks.
Sounds good. I want to just thank everyone for being on tonight. We've got one thing on our agenda tonight, and that's the 2020 amendment to the BAO restoration plan. Ray, so we've had our 30-day comment period. We had 2 comment letters is all. Ray's going to go over those comment letters and any changes to the plan based on those. And then we'll have, we're going to let him get through all of his presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions from the council and from the public, and then work on the public input and come up with a motion and hopefully vote on this thing tonight. So with that, I'll let NRDP go ahead and get started here.
Thank you, Elizabeth, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is Ray Vinke with the Natural Resource Damage Program. I appreciate all of your attendance tonight. As Elizabeth mentioned, I'm going to first walk through our responses to comments, and then look at the 2020 amendment as written and open it up for discussion and a motion by council. So with that, I think Elizabeth outlined where we're headed, and I'll start the presentation. But yeah, it'd be best if folks hold their questions, please. All right, kind of standard ground rules, just in terms of folks being able to follow the meeting. Miranda's mentioned those in the past, but we are all being recorded, and to save bandwidth, please don't use your video if you can help it. Do raise your hand if you have a comment to make, and wait to be recognized and announce your full name. All right, so yeah, I'm going to walk through our response to comments and then the amendment, as I mentioned. The background, I think all of you know well, but this 2020 amendment is based on prior amendments to the 2012 restoration plan, and also considers the recent consent decree. All right, so we had a public comment period from October 5th to November 5th. It's fairly wide distribution, 6 area newspapers, ads were run in. Also, we sent invitations to comment to 235 entities, and as Elizabeth mentioned, we had 2 comment letters provided, one from Butte Silverbow County and another from the EPA. So these comment letters, the way we did it was we broke down their comments into like categories, and then provided a response to each category of comments. So the first comment here was Butte Silverbow. Julia Crane mentioned that the revegetation table 2 in our restoration plan was not clear enough, and it didn't accurately reflect the fund balances. So there's no changes in terms of, the actual amount of funds available, but it was just that they could have been presented better. So we, incorporate and propose to incorporate in our amendment a revised table 2, which Julia worked closely with Doug to create. So here's the table 2 as revised, and kind of the central point here was the initial point of the initial table didn't reflect that Montana tech funds had been largely spent. So when you looked at this total in the table as we had proposed, this was about $1 million too high. So there were some other categories that it didn't accurately reflect most recent expenditures, but so we're making that correction and appreciate Julia's input. All right, so another comment that came from Butte Silver Bow was that based on the fact that that table seemed to reveal less funding available, they saw it as appropriate to basically, in our new restoration plan, to allocate 15% rather than 5% of expenditures to revegetation. So that's something that we'd like the council to discuss later tonight, and yeah, we'll be looking for in the alternate motion that you provide some input on that. So also regarding additional funding for revegetation, Butte Silver Bow in their comment requested that that to the extent that there are reimbursed funds that come after remediation on Silver Bow Creek, that those funds should also go to revegetation. It's a natural resource damage programs, I guess, recommendation that we don't know how many funds are going to be available. It's going to be 5 or maybe more likely 10 years down the line until we know what we're going to have for reimbursed remainders. And because of that, decisions should really be made once our projects have been completed, once we know remediation has been done, and we have a better idea of future priorities. So this is something we'd also like the council's input on later tonight. So our third category, category C, had to do with stream restoration and how funding would be allocated or directed. And Butte Silver Bow, in this case, requested that stream restoration projects upstream of Father Sheehan Park be funded from the Upper Clark Fork River Basin Aquatic and Terrestrial Resource Funds, and that downstream that those projects should be funded from the BAO stream restoration. So the 2020 amendment does not amend the 2012 BAO stream restoration category, and we don't recommend any revisions at this point to address that. This work was really directed towards allocation of existing funds as well as any future funds that may come in. And what's pertinent to that also is Butte, Blacktail and Basin Creek upstream of the BP SOU. They've already got dedicated funding from the 2019 amendment and also from the Upper Clark Fork River Basin restoration plans. All those plans, we've already have the flexibility to coordinate funding in order to maximize benefits. So we don't see at this juncture a need to do that. Another complicating factor is that the area between Lexington and Father Sheehan Park, it falls within the West Side Soils Operable Unit, and EPA has yet to identify what the remedial actions are there. So to make commitments in terms of what funds would be spent there are maybe a little getting ahead of ourselves from our perspective. So category D This was about the small projects, which was one of the categories that we addressed in the 2020 proposed restoration plan. And working with the council, we decided that it was appropriate to preserve already approved funding for Moulton Reservoir and Bonanza BMX projects. That those $100,000 were already committed, $100,000 each in prior meetings by the BNRC, and that we should keep those decisions in place. Also, $50,000 would be allocated to work with Butte Silver Bow for additional planning of trail planning in and around Butte, because that's recognized as something of interest. So the BNRC and NRDP and Butte Silver Bow were all on the same page that those would be appropriate choices. So yeah, Butte Silver Bow was in concurrence with the direction. All right, so Jim Ford is on the line as well. Jim's been working in detail on the Parrot site, and he's going to address the next couple comments that we have in our response.
Sure, thanks, Ray. So we did receive a letter from EPA, and attached to the letter were some previous comments that EPA had sent us on our conceptual site model report that we released earlier in October. The letter didn't have any specific comments to the restoration plan amendment. It did say that their comments that we just received weeks earlier had not been addressed, and they didn't agree or address that our conclusions are incorrect. So there's a bit to unwind there, but less to say that we are going to address EPA's comments about the CMS report, but we're not doing it here within this amendment because they really don't have much to do with the amendment, although they do lead into the summary language that we had about the CMS in this amendment. And Butte Silver Bow also had comments directly to that, saying that there is some technical disagreement. So without going into a rat hole about what this multi-decade technical disagreement is about contaminated groundwater and groundwater discharging to the creeks, I will say that the recently executed consent decree for the Butte priority soils acknowledges contaminated groundwater discharging to the creek, requires BPAR to collect contaminated groundwater before it discharges to the creek on Blacktail Creek, and not just to study it, and has what is a really unique component, probably the most unique component of the CD, trigger values for in-stream sediments for additional contaminated groundwater capture. So, you know, the general response is what you see right before you, that the CMS data clearly shows that the Parrot is the primary source of historic mine waste contamination to groundwater. And I think that's undisputed. I mean, the concentrations, the color of the water speak for themselves. And the second component of it is contaminated groundwater is discharging to and contaminating the creek's surface water and in-stream sediments. So we still stand behind those conclusions if that's what EPA was referring to as incorrect. But to address that here in this restoration plan, to address primarily Butte Silver Bow's concern, what we did was remove the actual summary of conclusions from the report, and we put in a statement. And if you want to go, Ray, if you're controlling if you want to go to the next slide, we just put in a reference and a link to the actual report in this amendment. And I think that serves maybe to address Butte Silver Bow's comment, but still allows people to access what we think is pretty important information on injury to the resource groundwater and its risk and impacts to surface water. So these are the bullets as the language would be revised that would be included in the amendment. Ray, if you want to go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, then I think. Oh yeah, next slide, sorry. So in EPA's letter, they did reference some additional comments that we received from CTEC, and we received those on November 5th. Of course, we are considering, we will address where appropriate, and I'm sure we will respond to CTEC's comment letter on the CMS, but it wasn't a comment letter on the restoration plan amendment. CTEC in their letter, just a note, recommended a bunch of additional data collection analysis that they thought needed to be done to better understand the existing groundwater conditions and the interaction between groundwater and surface water. And I can say in general, many of those recommendations we agree with. What we don't agree with is that it's the state of Montana and the Natural Resource Damage Program's responsibility to decipher, quantify, and better understand those things. We think it's most appropriate that EPA required BP Atlantic Richfield to collect all necessary and appropriate data and to conduct the correct analysis by CTEC. So we thought they had a lot of good ideas, but they're not really ideas that we should be spending our resources and time on. So with that said, I guess, I think that's all I had, Ray.
Good, thanks, Jim. That helps. So I did want to mention this quickly. All this information, in detail, the amendment and our response to comment are in your packet, and we're just, giving an overall summary of what we thought were the most salient points for the response to comment, and and what you're going to be making a motion on relative to amendments to the BAO plan. So I'll provide an overview here. So before you discuss or make any motions relative to the BAO plan, I'll just walk through this is just a repeat of our last BNRC meeting, actually this portion of the program, but this will keep it fresh on everybody's minds, what's in the amendment. So our amendments fall into 4 categories, which are technical and administrative revisions. Again, revisions to allocation of funds from the streamside tailings operable unit, and if revisions to the allocation of any potential incoming reimbursements to the BAO. So, and I've already talked about the small projects. I'll mention that also. So the one key point about this technical and administrative revisions, these don't provide any overall change the direction of the restoration plan. They're just kind of some cleanup we need to do to make sure our language in the 2020 amendment is consistent with prior amendments and also, well, the 2012 amendment. And also captures, makes some editorial corrections and captures our response to that comment that Jim just spoke about relative to the para monitoring. So that's attachment A, where we discuss those administrative changes. And again, as Jim mentioned, we just send the reader to our full report on the para CSM rather than including that bulleted language about findings to date. So, all right, so our category B, in this case, we addressed how funds will be spent. There are excess funds from the streamside tailings work that's occurred. And rather than all the funds being spent on priority restoration in Silverbow, Blacktail, and Basin Creek, or those, by the way, those funds were specifically directed per the 19th Amendment, as I say in the second bullet, to fish passage, entrainment, water quality. Those are all pretty clear direction in terms of what type of stream restoration projects would be occur with that $2.5 million. As proposed, the council identified a need to explore opportunities to integrate restoration with remediation, and the decision was made to allocate $500,000 to the Silverbow Creek corridor to do that, and that would be consistent with Section 6 of the 2012 restoration plan. And that $2 million would remain to work on stream restoration, as I discussed. So here's what that looks like. It's just a pretty simple breakdown in how the allocation of the funds compare. And yeah, so. All right, so funds that are potential reimbursements that would come into the Butte Area 1 fund are of interest. And it was decided, proposed that 35% of potential reimbursements would go to the Silverbow Creek corridor, and that would address the integrated waste removal in the BP SOU, in Diggings East, Northside Tailings, and the Butte reduction works. 5% is currently proposed in the BAO amendment, the 2020, would go to waste area improvements. Again, Butte, Silverbow, and their comments suggested that 15 would be more appropriate. And we've got 40% that would be directed to stream restoration, again, consistent with the 2019 amendment. There's interest in additional funds to recreation, and 20% of potential future reimbursements would be allocated to those. This is how this breaks down in terms of the 2019 amendment and as proposed, what the reimbursements would be and the allocation of excess funds from the streamside tailings operable unit. We discussed the small projects category. I think I mentioned that Butte Silverbow was in concurrence with this, and these is how those funds, the remaining funds, would be spent. I'm not sure I mentioned that $193 million would also be directed to stream restoration. So that's small projects, and we have those four. Just to go back real well, I won't. So again, those are the four categories that this plan as proposed addresses: the technical revisions, the SSTOU remainder, future reimbursements, and small projects. And that's all captured in the packet you have in the written amendment. And this is how that looks in terms of this table shows an overall summary of we're at in 2019, and then as proposed, what the funds would be in each category. So given my summary of the four categories, this kind of what they mean on the ground, this table, NRDP offers the following recommendation. We recommend that the NRDP recommends that the 2020 BAO Restoration Plan Amendment be adopted as proposed with the substitution of revised table 2, that's a revegetation table, and directly referencing the Parrot tailings. So a reference to the Parrot tailings conceptual site monitoring report in attachment A. And again, so it's a revegetation table that we're saying the corrected revegetation table should be included, and we'll just reference that report rather than detail the injuries in attachment A, section 1.2.1. So that's our recommendation. And what we'd ask the council tonight to discuss is these items which I've identified. Increasing the vegetation funding from 5 to 15%, and then how to deal with incoming funds that might come. And Butte Silver Bow, recommends be allocated to revegetation. So, yeah. So those are highlighted in blue here. So we'd like to see council discussion and decision on those topics. Miranda is going to, at this point, bring up a document in Word on screen, and with your discussion, she will create an amendment, or sorry, Miranda will bring up a Word document, and then based on you guys' motion, she'll compose it on screen, so we're very clear on what the motion is and going forward. So with that, I turn it over to discussion from the council, and development of a motion as you see fit.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate that, you going through that. I think I'm just considering how the best way to attack this. So NRDP has put together a proposed draft motion, but maybe the easiest way to do this would be to go through the amendment, and with the council, I'll open it up to the council for any discussion of the changes to the proposed amendment that were made based on the response to comments. So with that, I think it might be easiest to just go through the council members one at a time, so everybody kind of gets a chance, and it won't be so confusing to figure out who goes where. So with that, I might go to you first, sister, in the room here.
Yes, I think we were pretty clear on what we had decided would be the best way to proceed. We presented those issues, and Butte Silver Bow has said 5% would not be enough for the re-veg program. And I guess one of the questions I have is, how much of the previous allocation agreement is still left to do revegetation, and how much of the new allocation agreement that will be signed will address revegetation? And I think sometimes we don't have enough information to say, well, we should go from 5% to 35%. What's the basis of that decision? That's a pretty big jump. And that means then there's some other areas that will be taken away from, and we'll have less to put into those areas. So I don't know if that's a question or just a comment.
And maybe that's the best place to start, since we've started with that potential change to the plan. Let's go through the council and kind of get everybody's thoughts on that 5 to 15% change in reimbursements to re-veg. So that gives me a direction. Thank you. Bill, did you have a comment on that?
I do. I see the Butte Silver Bowl still sitting on $1 million plus for the re-veg component here, and I think that at this time In my opinion, I think that we should leave the 5% as it is. And when this money is spent and down the road, if need be, we can switch money around again to, if there's more money that needs to be spent, then we can consider that at a later date.
Thanks, Bill. Helen, I'll go to you on the phone.
Okay, this is Helen Joyce. I'm good with the amendment.
So you're looking at the 15%?
Well, I think we should give Butte Silver Bow the additional money that they want. And then the other changes to the amendment, I'm fine with.
Okay. Okay. John McKee?
Hey, all. I'm okay with the amendment, but only insofar as a value is set for dollars per tree planted, if you will. When we look to the money we gave to Norm Daniil to do the steward versus money we've given in the past to other re-veg efforts, you can't hold a candle to the two. Norm Daniil's vastly outperformed any other planting, and I'd be fine with putting money into a re-veg at 15%, but targeted towards a metric of X amount of trees per dollar spent. And I don't feel that anyone other than Norm could meet that metric right now. And so if we're not going to direct the money with a focus on, how much overhead is allowed, how much loss in planting is allowed per year, if we don't have a really good metric for that, then no, I'm not in favor of it. It's just add 15%. I'm not. But if we have something that can say, all right, fine, that 15% would go to something like Norm, or not Norm, but anyway, Daniil did at the steward. If it's something like that, I'm 100% on board. But if we don't have those guardrails on that, then no, I'm not in approval of that.
Thanks, John. I think we'll go next to Ryan Lynch on the phone.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. I'm good with the extra 10% going. I think really the aesthetics and the tree planting makes sense from a community standpoint, and the feedback I've heard from the locals, they're good with that. And I agree, John, I think you bring up a good point. I think we should look at it. And I know that, Norm's cost is probably a little bit less than what a city worker is. But I'm okay with something in that box.
So,
All right, thank you.
Sorry, may I just interject very quickly for I think, everybody's benefit? It's Ray Vinke with NRDP. Just one item is, if we're going to revise that 15%, then it's going to have to come out of some of the other categories. So just wanted to, relay that as conversation proceeds. So since we have 5 here, if it was 15, then it's got to be, removed from some other categories. So that's it. Sorry to interject. I hope that helps.
Good point, Ray. Thank you. I think we'll go next to John Sesso.
Okay, John Sesso here for the record. I am in favor of moving the needle on the re-veg category from 5 to 15. And I would point out a couple things. First of all, the presumption that this is money for Butte Silver Bow alone is not quite accurate. When we made the suggestion to move it, so first of all, as you can see on the screen now, the amount of 3.144559 is actually 1978. That's $1 million less, 1,165,000 less than was presented in the first draft. So it's a lower number, 1.978 for starters. And as we look at the table of category 2, thank you. Butte Silver Bow's area is just one. This is kind of in response to Bill Callahan's point. Yeah, we might have $1 million left, but the category is where that 5% change to 50. You see in the lower right-hand corner of the chart here, the entire category gets the 15%, not necessarily Butte Silver Bow, not necessarily the Montana Tech's Restoration Ecology Program. It's the category that would get the additional funding, and we as a BNRC can decide where to invest those dollars over the course of the next 20 years as is appropriate. We believe that the program up at Montana Tech and some other re-veg projects, incidentally, are with respect to the Parrot, the project at the Norms project be above the Stewart. I have to point out to everybody that the reason it's meeting John McKee's expectations and it's such a fantastic project comes at a cost. We're incurring an extraordinary water bill to get those trees to grow, and that is different from the native and natural attack we have done on some of the other plantings. So there's kind of apples and oranges going on there. One's a irrigated a demonstration, and the rest we have stopped the irrigation so that they can get more integrated into the hill and in a more native, natural way. But that being said, the concept of performance standards, of metrics to measure the value of the investment, we're all in, and I think Butte Silver Bow would concur in that and want to have those metrics to measure the effectiveness of any investment in this category. The point here is that we started with $6 million. We moved that down to $3 million with the amendment in 2019. We have made expenditures out of the original $6 million, and now we're left with 1.9. And so we just are looking out 20, 30 years to have a sustainable amount of money in this category. And it's for all projects in this re-veg category, not necessarily line or row 2 there with Butte Silver Bow's role, but all the projects that we might pursue in making the hill as natural and as native as it once was in the pre-mining days. The way I do the math is for every percentage point we might get reimbursed, we're talking about the amount of money that might come back to the BAO from the Butte site account emanating out of the consent decree, the 20.5 million. You do the math, and the way we had set up the assumptions anyway was $14 million might come back to the Butte Area 1 fund, and it might be a little more actually because of interest earned and how efficient we might do the Blacktail Creek project. But regardless, 1% that comes back to the BAO would equate to about $50,000. The 5% that was allocated for this category would be about $250,000, $270,000. And of course, these are all assumptions. And if it was raised to 15%, we're talking about an extra $500,000 going into this category. And I just think as a placeholder for the long term, having an extra $750 versus an extra $250 is a prudent move. And so we would be very much I would be very much in favor of increasing the 5 to 15 for the category, not necessarily just Butte Silver Bow's portion of this plan. And then, my recommendation would be to take it out of the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor 35%, because that equates to about a couple $1 million that we would be putting in 35% of the 5 million, about 1.7, 1.8, and then plus the 500,000 we've got there. We're putting 2 million more in the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor, and I think it could withstand a 500,000 less. I also have a question, Madam Chair, regarding this notion that these dollars won't be available for a while until we get the Blacktail Creek project done. It's my understanding, as it's been explained to me, in the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor role there, that one of our main goals would be to support additional excavation of tailings. And I can't help but think that the best and most cost-effective time to do that is while we're implementing the remedy, particularly in the East Diggings area, the North Diggings area, and parts therein. And we kind of want to make sure we do that at the same time. So I assume that sometime next year we're going to have to amend this anyway, because we're going to have to get at some of this reimbursement money in this category, in the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor category, to spend it on additional tailings removal. So I just wanted some clarification on that. But I think that's where I stand. I think we should invest a little more, or plan to invest a little more, in the re-veg category, and make sure we have dollars there for all of the proposed activities, and a little less in the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor category, because again, that 500,000 we're taking from the 2.5 streamside tailings money, and what 25% would be, 25 times 50, about another 1.4 million. So I think we're not shortchanging Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor by taking 10% away. So I think that's just a better balance, and is in keeping what I think the work we're going to get done under remedy. I think that those reimbursements might be a better balance. So that's how I think.
Elizabeth, this is Doug. Do you want us to address John's question about the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor timing and that type of integration with remediation? Elizabeth, you're muted. Sorry, I just see it on the screen.
Sorry about that, Doug. Yeah, if you would go ahead and address John's question, that'd be great.
All right, so I'm gonna try to paraphrase what you were saying, John, and make sure we understand, and I'll probably turn it over to Jim. But so you're indicating that we'd probably have to do another amendment to get to the $2 million that's from the SST that's currently sitting in the stream restoration corridor. Is that what you're indicating, in order to integrate remediation and restoration within the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor category?
Madam Chair, Jim or Doug, No, I was assuming that this whole concept of reimbursement, which is one of the main goals of our amendment here, is what would we do if, as we hope, about $5 million comes back to the BAO, if you know, we from the 20.5 million plus interest in the consent decree. And it's been stated many times that, hey, don't get too excited. We're not going to be able to know how much money that is until we finish the Blacktail Creek remedy, or DEQ finishes that, and then we'll know how much of the 20.5 plus interest is left, and then we can put it back into the restoration fund, the BAO, and the groundwater fund. And so we've been speculating that this $5 million is going to come back to the BAO, and then we use percentages to determine whatever that amount is. It's going to go into these categories based on these percentages. And then when I looked at the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor line there on top, and we put 35%, we've got 35% of an X we don't know yet, but to do the good work in that category, particularly any additional tailings removal beyond remedy in the Diggings East and the North Diggings area, et cetera, you know, we're going to want to spend that money before we have a final sense of how much money is going to come back to the BAO is what I was getting at. And so I assumed that once we got the remedial design done for the East Diggings area and building the said basins, and the remedial design done for the North Diggings area, and we got a sense of how that's going to go, and we got some more data from our monitoring program, we're going to make a play to say, hey, Arco, while you're in the ground, how about taking a few more tailings out of there while you got the hole open in a restoration agenda in a real cost-effective way. And that's when I think we're going to need to spend some of that Butte site account money that might come back to the BAO, is what I was saying.
Okay, and I guess we agree with you there. And that that $500,000 that's been placed there will help set up that integration, and then move forward with the integration when those plans are integrated. So yeah, I guess we agree with that.
Okay, well, I just wanted to point that out, that at some point we're going to have to pull that trigger. And then that led to my other point, Madam Chair, that I just think that we can afford to take a little piece of the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor allocation and put it in the waste re-veg category for now as a placeholder, and then set ourselves up for reconsideration later as necessary.
Okay, thanks, John. Dave Williams, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I guess after listening to Doug and John, I'd be comfortable distributing that, taking some from stream restoration and some from the reimbursement to bring the waste area improvements and re-veg up a little bit. It's interesting in the sense that we really have no idea until we actually see what remedy is getting done. But I think as a placeholder, it's reasonable.
All right, I'll weigh in a little bit here. I agree with John. I think that this is not the last time we're going to have to make an amendment to this plan. And I don't think that we can see into the future on what monies we're going to need where. I think there's $1 million roughly for both Butte Silver Bow and Montana Tech, which is going to hold them in that re-veg category for a while, and then allow some remedy to get done so we can, and some plans to be made so that we can see where it is that we need to move money around to do the best that we can do for this community. And so I guess at this time, I would just leave the 5% there as a placeholder that says, yeah, we're going to have some kind of a reimbursement back in here, but at this time, we have enough money in this category to get done what we need to get done. And then once we see how the remedy elements play out, then we make that change. And I think we will have to amend this again, since none of us have a crystal ball. So that's my 2 cents on it. I think we're changing something at this point that we don't even know what it is. Sister Mary Jo has comment here.
This is Sister Mary Jo, and I don't have comments, but I just have a question. And I guess, what's the definition of Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor? What does that include?
I think it would include, this is Jim Ford. I think what we're talking about is above the confluence with Blacktail Creek.
Okay, so we are not talking Texas Avenue on through.
I think it's within our plan, our plan boundary for Upper Silver Bow Creek is the upper part of BAO.
Okay.
That is correct.
Including Texas Avenue all the way down through the confluence when we speak of Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor and what needs to be done there.
Madam Chair, this is Doug. Yes, that is correct. The Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor in the restoration plan is identified as the area of the historic floodplain of Silver Bow Creek through Butte Area 1. It includes waste areas identified, as we've talked, the Parrot tailings, Diggings East, Northside tailings, and BRW.
Thank you.
All right, I am unsure, but we have a bit of a problem tonight in that we have an even number of council members. Emmett is missing, but by my count, I have four people, I think, that are for leaving it at 5%, and 4 people that are for moving it to 15%. And we have not defined while moving that to 15% where that comes from, except for John made the recommendation that it comes from Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor. So if I am, maybe we'll go around the council one more time and make sure that that is correct. And if you do want to move that to 15%, then whether you agree or disagree with taking it from the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor, so we can, I think, do that fairly quickly here. Sister Mary Jo?
I would agree to adding some percentage to that rebate, but I would not agree with taking it all out of the Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor. I would take some from each category and balance it out.
Okay. Bill?
I agree.
Okay, 2 for that. 2 for increasing to 15%, but balancing it within the categories. All right, and then I'll try to go the same order. Helen?
I'm for increasing it and taking it from Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor, but open to dividing it amongst the categories.
All right. Okay. I'm trying to keep track here as we go. John McKee?
I'll follow Sister's recommendations, and again, might just ask that staff afterwards, regardless of the choice, puts guardrails on a $1 per tree invested. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then I think it's John Sesso, oh no, Ryan Lynch, sorry.
That works for me.
So balance between or?
Balance between, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
All right.
the 15. Yeah.
John Sesso?
Madam Chair, I'm in favor of adding the 10% to re-veg. I could live with a balanced, taking 5 out of corridor and 5 out of stream restoration. I'm a little hesitant to take any out of recreation because it's 20%. But if we want to split the extra 10 for re-veg in Upper Silver Bow Creek corridor and stream restoration, because they're the beneficiary of the 2.5. That's cool with me.
Okay. And Dave Williams?
Yeah, I'm fine with John's suggestion and sister's suggestion and splitting it between Upper Silver Bow Creek and stream restoration.
That wasn't sister.
So are you, I guess, so now we have, the majority want to increase it to 15%. Now the only question on the table is where it comes from. And so we've got, I see 2 different proposals here to balance it between the other 3 and to balance it between the stream restoration and the Upper Silver Bow Creek.
Recreation.
And yeah, well, there's two separate ones. I think anybody maybe will make a recommendation that make a proposal that we increase it to 15% and take 5% from stream restoration and 5% from the Silver Bow Creek corridor.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair. John Sesso.
Okay. I'll second it. This is Dave.
Okay. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
No?
Aye.
2 no's here? 2 no's. Okay, so we got, actually, because I didn't want to increase it at all. So there's 3 no's here, but 5 yays on that. Is that what everybody's seeing? Am I correct on that? So I think that passes. So that it's an increase to 15% with 5% coming from Silver Bow Creek and 5% coming from stream restoration.
I'm impressed that you can figure this out on Teams. This is Dave. You're going by voices. And
it's a little tough, but we're there. Now the question is Shannon, could you follow that?
I think we did. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thanks,
All right.
Thanks for the summary on that, though. That I got it here, so I think we're good.
Okay. Sounds good. So let's maybe just go through what is the next change to the plan.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I had one technical item that I wanted to bring to the attention on the chart that was presented by Ray in this thing here on the final amounts. That seemed to be very accurate.
Is this the revised chart?
This one, yeah.
Okay.
This one here, no, not this one. One more, Ray. The one where you have the 6.9 million in the lower right-hand corner. Yeah, that one. So that one's the way I had figured it. But on page 7 of 7 of attachment A to our on the actual official amendment, table 4 still has the original amount, the 3.115 844 for mine waste re-veg and the 8087 in the last column.
Madam
So-
Chair, Madam Chair, this is Doug. John, you are correct. That is something that Ray and I picked up here when we were doing the presentation, and yes, that does need to be corrected.
Okay, great. Just wanted to point that out, Madam
Yeah.
Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ray, would you go back to the slide that laid out the things that we need to decide tonight, the changes? Okay.
So you got number 1.
And it's only
Doing
7
good.
Okay, so the second one here is that BSB requests BNRC consider to the extent reimbursed funds are not necessary and used for Upper Silverbow Creek integrated waste removal, that these funds go to re-veg. So that's the topic on the table, and I think we'll just go around the council again one by one as we have been. That seems to be working fairly well. So sister, I'll send that one to you first.
I would say most of those funds will be expended if the Upper Silverbow Creek corridor is Texas Avenue through the confluence. And I'd like to see that done while we are doing remediation so that it can be done less expensively. But I think that has to be done at the same time remediation happens. And I think that's the responsibility of NRDP speaking with ARPO to make sure that when they begin that process, that's included.
All right, so let me just to clarify that. So you're thinking that, do you agree then with NRDP's recommendation there that the allocation of the unspent funding be made once the projects are complete and priorities known?
But the project complete before any of those funds are diverged.
Okay, yep, and that's the recommendation by NRDP on the table as I understand it. All right, Bill, you agree with that recommendation? Okay. Helen?
I agree with the recommendation.
Great. John McKee?
Agreed.
Great. Ryan Lynch?
I agree.
Great. John Sesso?
I agree.
Great. Dave Williams?
I agree also.
Great. And I agree with that one also. So I think that recommendation stands. All right. What else we got, Ray? There's Norm.
That's what we have, Elizabeth, in terms of our specific requests of the council, and other staff, please correct me as appropriate. But yeah, I'd asked if you have other discussion, good, but we'd look for you to draft a motion, and Miranda will help do that by sharing her screen.
Okay. And maybe before we finish up, I'll just go to each council member and see if there is anything else in this plan amendment that they'd like to discuss before we go to the motion. Sister?
I think I'm clear.
Okay. Bill? Okay. Helen?
No.
Okay. John McKee?
Yeah, just strangely, I've been on other business throughout this meeting with the trustee, and the trustee wanted me to pass on his gratitude that we're having this meeting, that we're trying to get something done prior to the end of his term. And just, I don't know, let me go to his exact message. His exact message is convey my thanks for all the good work the BNRC has done over the past 8 years. So I think the fact that we're trying to get this done for the current trustee is recognized and appreciated by the current trustees. So I have no other comments. Thanks.
Oh, appreciate that, John. Thank you. All right, Ryan.
Follow that. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Okay. John Sesso.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Everything else is good? Okay, Dave Williams.
No, I don't have anything specific, but I would, it was interesting to hear Jim's discussion, brief discussion of the CTEC comments. And I don't think when CTEC made those comments that we were specifically identifying that NRDP should do work. We were identifying things that we felt needed to be done to confirm or solidify groundwater geochemistry sorts of issues. And we, like as Jim mentioned, this is a decades long project. So there are still some scientific questions that we're searching for answers to.
Thanks, Dave. All right. With that, I think we are ready to move to, let's see, do we have?
You need a motion.
Yeah, first we'll go to the motion, Shannon.
And Madam Chair, Elizabeth, Miranda's doing that for us, so it's not.
Sorry. Sorry. I knew that too, Miranda. I'm sorry.
Can you all see my screen?
We can, but it's really small.
Okay.
Oh,
Does that
much
make it better?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
So I'll just edit this as someone makes a motion, and so that we make sure we capture it.
I missed what you said there.
Elizabeth, this is Doug. She said she would edit it as the motion is made, and I guess if you would allow, I would propose that the edit to the re-veg category or the mine waste category be raised to 15%. With the additional 10% coming from the Upper Silver Bowl Creek category and the stream restoration, and 5% coming from the stream restoration category. That was your additional amend or change.
I believe so. Yep.
I make a motion that we accept it as written with Doug's additions.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. We're going to open it up to public input or comment on this motion. Is there any public input or comment on this motion? If you want to comment, and you can raise your hand, that'll help us. Okay. Do I see hands? I don't see any hands. Do you, Miranda?
No.
Okay. All right. With no public comment on it, we will go to a vote. So all in favor of the motion as made, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, it passes. All right, is there any additional public comment tonight? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Madam Chair, Elizabeth, can I make one
Yes.
quick comment? This is Doug. I would like the council to know that this proposal will be presented at the Trustee Restoration Council meeting on December 1st at 2 o'clock. That will also be via Teams meeting, and we will send out an invite to the council to attend if they would like to attend that meeting. Once again, there'll be a chance for public comment there as well. So just wanted to announce that, and thank you guys for moving through this so efficiently.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate that. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Everybody wants to stay on tonight.
I'll make a motion. We adjourn.
Thanks, Dave. Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everyone,
Thanks,
for being
everybody.
here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Be safe.
Thank you. Good
Stay
night.
safe.
Thanks for all your work, everyone. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job all. Yep, bye-bye.